So far, Putin has still not commented on the mass attack on his bomber fleet or the strategically imperative Kerch Bridge to Crimea. And the White House today was also pressed as to why we have also not heard anything from President Trump.
He said that Zelensky didn't have the cards when they met in the Oval Office a few months back. Does Zelensky possibly have some cards that the president hadn't known about?
I spoke to him about it just this morning. He remains positive at the progress that we've seen. Again, he urged both leaders to sit down and talk directly with one another, and they did that.
Was President Trump informed in advance by Ukraine that the attack is coming?
He was not.
Of course, Putin and Zelensky have not talked, if that's what she's talking about, the two leaders talking directly. The White House did acknowledge, though, that Zelensky kept Trump out of the loop on this attack. And that's obviously hugely significant. But then also you heard her say Trump, quote, remains positive at the progress on a peace deal. If that is the case, never mind the actions that we see every day. Perhaps the person who summarized the situation most clearly today was longtime Putin ally, top Russian security official, former prime minister, right, under Putin, of Dmitry Medvedev. He posts online, the negotiations in Istanbul are not needed for a compromised peace on unrealistic conditions invented by someone, but for our speedy victory. For our speedy victory. That's what this is all about. The Russian regime, actually honest there in that case, that what they're looking for is not a peace by any sign of ceasefire. They're looking for a victory. And on the actual front lines, Putin's new offensive, launched amidst these peace talks, is paying off. Putin's army quickly closing in on the Ukrainian city of Sumy, where civilians were killed in Russian strikes today. Putin's unrelenting push for total victory and targeting of civilians has pushed many Senate Republicans over the line. About 4 dozen Senate Republicans are now backing a bill that would add even more sanctions on Russia. By the way, a person sponsoring the bill, Trump's close ally, Lindsey Graham, lead sponsor of the bill. But as for Trump, he is silent. Kristen Holmes is out front live outside the White House to begin our coverage tonight. And Kristen, I know you're learning new information right now as I talk about Trump being silent. He has publicly been silent on these sanctions, but you're learning more about where he actually stands on them?
Yeah, that's right, Aaron. I'm told that he is really sitting back here to watch this entire situation unfold. They are saying that it's unlikely he's going to issue any sanctions, despite the fact that Carolyn Levitt today up there during this press briefing essentially said that senators, those people on Capitol Hill, know that he is the commander in chief, that they should defer to him. But it seems unlikely that there's going to be any deal anytime soon. And we know that was one of the reasons that Donald Trump was waiting to impose these sanctions, or at least said so. He didn't want to impact any deal. But as you also noted, Donald Trump, the White House here, acknowledging, confirming that Ukraine did not give them a heads up before the drone attack over the weekend. But we still haven't heard from President Trump. And I am told that this is all part of one strategy, which is just to see exactly how this plays out. You are right. There's not been a situation in which Zelensky and Putin have sat down, had direct talks. However, the White House looks at this as some sort of a win when you see the two sides talking directly, that they were not talking before. Now you have them sitting down together. You have the United States kind of pulling out of that. Remember, we didn't send a representative to those talks in Istanbul. Again, what they want out of that doesn't seem as though what Donald Trump is saying is going to come out of those talks. Obviously, when you hear Russia saying this is all about their ultimate victory, but they are looking at this as a step-by-step process. And one of the things that we have to note, Donald Trump has systematically been trying to pull himself out of the negotiations. He is trying to say this is Russia's war, this is Zelensky's war, that this is Biden's war. Clearly here trying to take the United States out of this situation. But as you said, there's this bill on Capitol Hill. There are these senators who are trying to push through these high sanctions, trying to make Russia be held accountable. Whether or not Donald Trump can just sit on the sidelines for the extended amount of time remains to be seen.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much with that new reporting from the White House tonight. And let's go straight now to Christo Grozev, the focus of a new feature titled The Man Putin Couldn't Kill in the New York Times. He's an investigative journalist. He's on Russia's wanted list. Of course, the man behind the unveiling of the Putin efforts to kill Alexei Navalny with Novichok. So it is good to see you, Christo, and to be here with you together in person. So I guess let's just start with the bridge attack coming on the heels of the bomber attack. This is the third attack on the bridge, and you've got new reporting on it.
Well, I mean, it's the third and not the last one, but what we know is that there's a competition among the security services in Ukraine, including the military special operations services, to deliver a continuous flow of attacks on the bridge. We don't see a scenario in which the bridge will be completely destroyed. The bridge is something that Putin will essentially prioritize over everything.
Right, they
will
fix
spend
it every
billions.
time
They will
something
fix it every
happens.
time. But it's just something that symbolically is very important for the Ukrainian army to continue attacking, because that does, of all the symbols of Russian desire to own Ukraine, that bridge that connects Crimea, annexed by Russia in 2014, is the most valuable symbol, and that's why Ukraine prioritized that. There's competition among the services to deliver this. I think we're going to see more of these.
And also that and the strategic bombers. I mean, the Russians were unable to penetrate that, right? This was going on for 18 months. They didn't penetrate the Ukrainian security services to know it was happening. They didn't penetrate the process as it was happening. I mean, that in and of itself is stunning. But all of it together feels rather humiliating for Putin.
That is correct. I mean, as we speak, there is an actual soul-searching, post-mortem, call it whatever you want, at the Kremlin. People are being yelled at. People are worrying for their jobs and maybe for their lives over what did not happen, how they did not discover what was happening for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. This is not something that Putin forgives. So I do expect major changes at the top, obviously with a delay, because Putin doesn't like acting or reacting in real time, because that shows weakness. But within a couple of months, we're going to see it.
Whether people are fired, whether people are
fall off windows.
Fall out of windows. All right. You've got new reporting on one of the Russian GRU units, which is crucial. This is Unit 29155, and it is known for a long list of assassination and sabotage attempts, including Sergei Skripal, the poisoning in the UK, the former KGB agent who had been recruited by British intelligence, right? But this is the unit, GRU 29155, who was behind that effort. And you're now learning more about that group and what exactly they are doing right now, hacking.
Correct.
Your reporting is having huge consequences in Russia as well. So what's happening here?
Well, first of all, we've been following that unit. Back at the time I was still with Bellingcat, we discovered the existence of this sabotage terrorism unit. Essentially, they travel over the world, explode things, kill people, try to poison people with Novichok. So it was a terrorism chaos sowing unit. What we didn't know is that they were doing the same sort of terrorism in the information sphere. They were hacking and leaking and inventing stuff in order to create confusion and animosity towards the United States, towards within the West, and so on and so forth. We discovered the existence of this information hybrid warfare subunit of that unit. And what we found on their servers, which were left unsecured for reasons that are very, very typical of Russian corruption and nepotism, and a friend of the family was running the server that was used for targeting, and they were left unsecured. So we benefited from being able to see their work in real time, their preparation for attacks on American companies, and that was amazing. We watched
you could see who they were targeting.
Yes, and I'll list some of I will not list companies, but the type of companies. But we've been watching them for about 6 months. What we discovered in terms of history of their operation is crazy. They were behind the whole biolabs invention, the conspiracy theory that the American government was sponsoring.
We're running like biolabs in
the
Ukraine.
Biolabs in Ukraine.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that grew legs, and people believed in that. Even members of the American administration were parroting that completely invented story. And now we have the origin story, how it was created, not the origin story of the biolabs or of the viruses, but of how it was invented. And they sponsored Western journalists to actually purvey this story for the rest of the world. We discovered that they were behind an effort to stimulate a civil war in Ukraine in 2021, before the invasion, before the actual invasion took place. They tried to trigger internal strife in Ukraine. They tried to assassinate people on both sides of the political spectrum there in order for this to start a civil war, so that Russia would come in as a peacemaker. And we discovered a lot of other crazy things, but let me move to the hacking part, because that is something that is still ongoing and has potential to damage. We discovered a list of 165 companies or websites that are on their hacking plan, on their hacking targeting list. And those included companies that you would expect from a malign actor like Russia, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, the Ukrainian Atomic Agency, and so on and so forth. But we discovered things that should not be ever have any legitimacy to be targeted, such as Colorado State University. But that's the only one I will mention because it's not a company. But why would the Russian hackers
Colorado
be?
State University and a lot of American companies.
Yes. Well, pharma companies, biotech companies, the main IT provider to the Pentagon, drug discovery companies, something that is very scary, DNA database in the United States, quantum computing companies, and even the doomsday clock. We have no idea why
Yeah.
they would want to hack the doomsday clock.